Okay, you're over 40 years old, maybe even over 50. You've worked your whole life, but will you ever be able to retire comfortably being that you don't have enough cash flow? Yet. In this episode, I'll show you the math and the strategy needed to buy affordable multifamily properties that cash flow. Okay, you're going to need a calculator for this one. So we had a client who bought 7 units single-handedly, 7 single-family properties, but they didn't cash flow. Want to know why? The reason why they didn't cash flow can be one or more of the following: no systems, no help, bad tenants, unexpected repairs, increased costs, no guidance, etc., etc., etc. However, the real reason is because of this. The cash flow wasn't clearly defined in his mind. So let's define it to make sure that you and I are both on the same page in terms of what this means, cash flow. Cash flow is the following, so write this down. It's your gross income minus your reserves, vacancies and maintenance, operating costs, property management, insurance, and so forth. Maybe property management. Debt service. Your gross income, that can be things such as your rents, your application fees, vending machines, coin laundry, etc. Reserves, vacancy and maintenance. Tenants move out, they don't pay sometimes, and things need fixed, natural wear and tear, or they do things spitefully, right? Operating expenses, property taxes, insurance, utilities, licensing fees, etc. Debt service can be mortgage payments, hard money loan payments, payments to your private lender or private partner, funding, business funding, seller financing, master lease option payment, etc. So if you know the definition of cash flow and research these numbers down to the penny for each deal you're looking at, you'll do a better job only closing on deals that fit this definition. And if it doesn't, you'll throw that fish back in the water, right? You just, hey, get out of the contract. But keep in mind, you should have a cash flow goal of $100 to $300 per unit per month goal based upon your cash flow needs, your debt service of how you're purchasing the property. And if you 100% finance a deal, then expect a lower end of cash flow. And it also depends on what market you're investing in. So if you found a 5 unit with $200 cash flow per unit per month, then getting $1,000 per month is great if it meets your goals and other metrics such as your return. Now let's get into the real deal. This is a live deal that we have here, and let's break down all the important numbers on it. Let's take a look.
Here's an image of the property here. So I'm gonna just do some quick and easy analysis on this real deal. So let's dive into it. This is a 4 unit we found. Just give you a quick glance. The purchase price of the seller wants is $169,900. We're looking to offer $140 for this property, so we have some built-in equity. The total cash needed to do this deal, meaning the down payment, the closing costs that we incur before closing. These are called soft costs, such as property inspections, forming entities, appraisals, stuff like that. The total cash we're anticipating to contribute to this deal that the mortgage or whatever won't cover, $38,735. Monthly cash flow day one of closing, $495. Cash on cash return, 15%. Cash flow per unit, $123 per unit per month. Quick overview. So let's break down some important numbers here. So with this 4 unit, looks like according to the listing, we can receive $22.75 by closing. But based upon our front end due diligence, which is a sweet and easy due diligence we do before buying the property, right? We didn't truly dive deep and investigate the numbers and perform feasibility studies. It just basically, all right, we did the 1% rule. We put the numbers in the spreadsheet that we got from the listing. We did some quick online research about what the rents could be. It looks like we can pursue this deal before we dive deep into the real nitty-gritty due diligence. And it looks like we can increase the rents to $42.50. All right. So as you can see here in column F, it shows the current performance, and in column G, the added value. All right. So with that being stated, our gross operating income, which is the income minus the vacancy rate, we should expect the gross operating income to be $2,206 a month. But once we increase the rents, $4,122. Now, with that increase in rents, of course, we should increase the expenses. But as long as that change is net positive, then let's go for it. So you see here the expenses. The expenses might increase a little bit in terms of property management, in terms of the maintenance reserve that we have in place. But the monthly expenses in its current state, day one of closing, we're expecting it to be $850. It could be more after we do some thorough due diligence, but from the jump, the front end due diligence, $850. And we're anticipating the rents to increase when we do the rent increases to the expenses to increase to $1,060. Okay. Now, the difference between the GOI, the gross operating income, and the operating expenses is the NOI, which you see here. $16,279 in its current state, but it could increase to a whopping $36,739. So that's huge. All right. So that's the difference between the current state and its added value state. All right. We're assuming we're buying this property in a 10 cap. So we have some formulas here to calculate the property valuation, how it currently stands. versus how it'll be once we do those rent increases. And we have our offer price here of 140, so we can buy this property with built-in equity. We also have the loan information to calculate what the cash flow will be, or the loan payment will be, I should say, based upon a 30-year mortgage. This is a 4-unit. We could possibly do investment mortgage residential. This is 4 units at 8.5. You might say, well, 8.5 is a lot. Hey, our philosophy is this, right? If things change in the market, such as interest rates go up, or it's a seller's market, or whatever, we use that to our advantage. We share that with the sellers. Like, hey, if you're in a need to sell position, not, I would like to sell, let me test out the waters. No, you need to sell this property because you're highly motivated. You just got another job offer in California. You can't afford 2 housing payments, or you inherit this property. You're not trying to be a landlord. Whatever the case may be. If you're divorce, sickness, whatever, going to foreclosure, you need to sell. We use that to our advantage to negotiate, better terms, better purchase price. So that way we get the property at the numbers that we want it. Okay. So in any market, you can still make the deal work. The thing you have to do as an investor just is that. So you see here, our total debt service is $10,334, just annual. So basically, the cash flow, which is the income minus the expenses minus the debt service for the mortgage, we're anticipating the annual income to be $5,944, increase to $26K, almost 4x, once we increase the rent to market rate. So you see here, the monthly cash flow is $495. It should increase to $2,200 once we do the rent increases. So that means we boost our return from 15, which is good at closing, to 68%. That's what we like to do. We want the property cash flow at closing, that you see here, but also has some room to force the appreciation, so that way we could really make a good profit on this deal. All right, that's it for the real deal. Let's get back to me again for the video. All right, thanks, peace.
Now, I feel like most people I work with, you're not trying to become a full-time landlord. You want results, not a second job. So what we like you to bring to the table when working with us are the 3 Ds: the down payment, the documents, and the determination. Let's start with the first D, the documents. The documents needed to get qualified for a mortgage. Also, tax return, W-2, 1099, stuff like that. If you have it, good. If you don't, no problem. We can work around it. The second D is the down payment. Down payment means the money you need to close on the property, right? It could be the closing costs, the actual down payment, or soft costs, property inspections, appraisals, stuff like that. And last and most important is determination. Being a team player, open-minded, persistent, having that determination, that grit, that tenacity. And this is how we help. We do all of the work, and you keep all of the ownership unless we do a partnership based upon the circumstances that you bring to the table. Because we want to make sure that we do one thing and one thing only: guarantee results. And if we don't, money back guarantee. In other words, we don't deserve your business, all right, if we weren't able to perform. So don't just take my word for it. Listen to what one of our clients had to say about the program right now.
All right, I'm excited. I'm almost ready to close on this property. It's my first commercial property, 5-unit. It wasn't easy. I ran into some road bumps along the way, but support from Juan. I had some brokers that tried to rip me off when I first started, trying to overprice me for units in the area. But from guidance from Juan, I was able to buy this property, now get it under contract with equity. And I'm just excited to move forward and invest in the PA area.
Now, if you're leveraging the property to the hills, to the point you're not cash flowing in the hopes that it'll cash flow in the future, a negative cash flow now, but in hopes you'll have positive cash flow in the future based upon how you manage it, then it may not be a good idea. Make the deal work to the point it cash flows today as soon as you close, but will cash flow even more tomorrow via the value add that you'll do. The forced appreciation, in other words. So just be willing to negotiate and keep pushing to the point you find the right deal that cash flows, but don't settle for less. Now let's look into good business found in the good book. So Jesus spoke about the crucial principles found in Luke 14, 28 and 29, saying, "For which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first, and counteth the cost, whether he has sufficient to finish it, lest happily, after he had laid the foundation, and is not able to finish it, all that behold it begin to mock him." So consider the cost, the cash flow definition, right? The cash flow analysis. Consider the cost before you build your empire, before you close on that property. Make sure you work the numbers and that they're exact. If you're using business credit, what is the cash flow today versus will cash flow tomorrow when that introductory APR expires before you get the deal under contract. If anything in this video resonates with you, I invite you to schedule a free discovery call. No pitch, no pressure, just clarity. So click the link below, opt in, and watch a 7-minute or so video that details more about who we are and how we can help.